So thanks for coming. My name's Chris Dykstra, and I'm the CEO of DrupalSquad. I want to, first of all, take a minute to welcome everybody and just say thank you to the organizers for this amazing opportunity to share. And the original title of my presentation was Observations about Selling Offshore Services, but I decided to just change that. And just go observations about selling, period. I think this is where most of us start in our companies, which is the basic set and the question of, can I have more sales? And it's usually asked in a very, what I would describe as questioning the universe way. But for me, over my career, selling, I didn't intentionally get into sales. I started as an artist in life, and I started a bunch of businesses from landscaping to screen printing. I was a line cook for a long time. And I think like a lot of people, a lot of creative people in the early 90s, I fell into the internet and discovered a path. But what is sales? And for me, it's a lot of stuff, and it's none of this stuff. These are some things that sales executives say from this Selling Power blog. If you go around the room right now and ask everybody kind of individually in a room, what is sales? You'll get a lot of different answers. And I think the answer for me to this question was essential in defining our company and defining kind of what I was about. Selling is a process of persuasion to get a prospect to take action, and so on and so forth. Selling is an art. Selling is science. Selling is walking the road of agreement with the customer. I agree with all of these and none of these precisely. This is my definition. Selling is the opportunity to participate in creating positive change in something you care about. And I think for me, this has been the most important question and answer definition. Some of the things I care about, and this was a long time ago before some of these things became popular, so I'm not going to pat myself on the back, but in the mid-90s I studied social justice in college, and that became an important thing for me. Climate change, as that escalated, and as we're seeing today in our world, that's an issue. This is a great sculpture called Politicians Discussing Climate Change. And then healthcare. In the US, that's a really big deal. And as kind of I discovered, or what I'm trying to communicate, in the beginning, it might not be about money. Authentic commitment to creating the change that you want is going to create authentic and valuable experience. And from a company perspective, the more experience you have, the more you can translate that into business knowledge and software process knowledge. So what did I do? I started seeking out other people who cared about the same things, and were meeting, meetups, and here's some organizations that we became involved in very early in kind of each one of these areas. And in particular, before I started, companies, I was an activist. So I already had some connections into this world, but who is working on these issues that you care about? I just started showing up where they were and talking with them about not only what we could do, because we actually didn't have a lot of capacity, but what I personally could do. And that translated into relationships with organizations that needed software development. We created, and this was, the point I'm making is actually this is kind of back in our history. So we've been in business for 15 years, working in Minsk under another company, WareCorp, and 6 years ago, we founded DrupalSquad. And this experience was with my first company. So we created some climate networks. We started seeking these climate organizations. They all had organizing to do websites, state-by-state basis, and they struggle for affordable resources. And this is an area where I think offshore can play. Or remote. Actually, offshore is a little bit outdated now. Remote teams is what I like to use, because it actually doesn't really matter where you are right now. All of these movements and most organizations are now global. And so I know in the States, when I go to talk to customers, everybody is used to having a remote workforce now. And so it's not really much of an issue. Back then it was. So as an organization, we started taking on projects. Some of them were bigger than others. Minute Clinic was a very large project. And this One Sky thing was a coalition of climate networks. And that was a very large, multi-year project. But they all contributed to our history of experience. And then, one case study. Before I get to the case study, we also began to join organizations and professional networks that care about the same things. And these are the things I care about in the beginning, and they affected our company culture. But I think it's very possible to, if you like horses or cars or whatever it is, show up there and begin to connect yourself with people, which will become your audience and your customers. Small case study for a passion project. And this is an example of something that wasn't profitable at all. Except it created and provided us with invaluable experience. So we created an entire media brand called The Uptake. And this is in Minnesota. It might not translate here. But we put cameras in the Minnesota State Legislature and began filming our politicians. We built a YouTube channel with 100 million views on it. And it didn't make money. In fact, it cost us a lot of money. But what it did was, now, 10 years later, we can say that. And that's very valuable. When you're going into talking to an enterprise client, and you say that, well, you matter now. You can say, oh, yes, I did that, and that's what they want to do. And so you can apply the same kinds of techniques. Now, this is risky, but authenticity is always risky, I believe. So the question if you haven't answered this for yourself in your life and in your business, I encourage you to do this. What do you really care about? Because most of us, when we approach a sales situation, we're like this bear. We don't have any idea what we're doing there sometimes. We're going to ask for something, but we don't know what it is often. And our organizations struggle to provide us with clear answers. The answer to that question might be your direction for your company. I find it a lot easier to go to work in the morning if I care about what I'm doing. So that's like part one of the discussion. The other one is, where should I point my sales lasers? And I'm using the word sales laser to think about tools, tips, techniques, and organized activities, I think. And I don't have time to go, into every one. There's a million of them. But a couple jump out at me. And I think this has to do with, again, authenticity. I use that word a lot. It can loosely be translated as honesty, I guess. That's what that rug looked like. That's what he got. And, he was thinking, I'm going to cover my living room with this rug, and, he gets a postage stamp. And so my observation here is be as real as you can be about where you are at. Because I think customers in general are very forgiving. They're, if you have a decent relationship with them and you're being real, you don't have to hide these challenges because the challenges are very real. We all know these are real things. They've always been real. In the history of, providing remote services, communication barriers are, of course, the number one issue. And they're not just issues for you. I think that's an important thing to remember, too, is, now, United States, I'm sure it's the same in Europe, people work remotely. Everywhere is like, they're in the home, they're in an Airbnb, they're doing something, they're riding the train, they're, on the phone, social media. They're not at the office next to you, hardly ever. And so your competition has these barriers exactly as you do. So there's no reason to hide them. Spoken language, distance, quality of documentation. And we address the spoken language barrier by, providing English lessons on our offices. It's a Band-Aid. I think it's unreasonable to expect someone to learn a language in 3 months and then, drop them into a complicated project. So the people who are project managing have to know it very well, and everyone else, we give a little bit of time to learn that. But we continue to communicate it as a company value. Distance, we overlap the United States by 4 hours, or we try to, on all of our teams. We try to have at least one stand-up a day with our clients on video. I think video is very important now. That's a facility that we have, so we should use that. And then, of course, distance, out of sight, out of mind. Is everybody doing the work that we actually promised them? That's a common question. And then, of course, communicating progress can be difficult. It's so much easier now with tools like Jira and whatnot, but our customers at least are busy entrepreneurs, people. That's who we've chosen to serve, and they don't have time for a lot of meetings, and so we communicate that proactively. And then I think general business knowledge is low, and I think these are something particularly for junior folks on a project, but even experienced people. We don't always know the business that we're about to serve. You might have a customer that's going to hire you, and you might not know anything about their business whatsoever. And this is the first thing to put on the table, which is just to say, yeah, all of this is true to your customer directly. And here's how we were going to work as hard as we can, but we are going to encounter challenges along the way. Hopefully this is a long relationship, and we should be able to... let me pop back up here. We should be able to remediate those things as we go. Hello. We just went to sleep. Yeah. Come on now. There we go. I have no idea. I'm just going to click a little bit. This is another important thing, an observation. It's not really, it's not necessarily what I would call unique. This is something my grandma used to say, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. Actually, I started selling much more. But the less I talk, there's a relationship to my close rate with the amount I talk. And because when you're talking, you're not listening, of course. And also, you're not hearing what your customer might want. You're more focused on communicating what you want and your agenda. And customers really like it when you just say, okay, tell me about your day, your problem, what I'm here for, and then just let them talk. Related to this is having kind of a clear next step. It's very unlikely in our business that you're going to close a deal in one meeting. Extremely unlikely. So what I usually try to, my first goal is to have another meeting. That's my only goal in the first initial encounter. And as long as I stick to that, I can relax. I'm not going to close. I'm not going to put a contract down. I'm not, going to call them 10 times or whatever. I'm going to be persistent and organized because that's what good salespeople do. But mostly, I'm just like really trying to be an active listener. Yeah, the other, I think, really important piece of this is don't quit. Because related to building experience in your organization, we've had disasters, everybody has. We've had, great things where people love us. However, if you build specifically, if you identify what you care about, what you're passionate about, and attract people to your organization who, care about the same things, if it's only for the technology even, I think that's, also an agenda that's important. And just step by step, improve, learn, repeat. You can get there. And the strange thing is, over time, you'll get better, and you'll also discover this is a never-ending process. Yeah. I kind of joke a long time. I used to think it was original, but it's not at all. As with most deep thoughts. I used to say, after 15 years, we're an overnight success. Steve Jobs said it first, which is, overnight success. It's very rare. And, just takes a long time. So the idea of, not quitting, just keeping at it, and it isn't you. It's much less about you than it is just about the process and taking time and working with your customers in an authentic way. And thank you very much. That's my brief presentation. Happy to take some questions. Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Eugene. Thank you for presentation, Chris. The question, you told that a lot of projects or, let's say, connections were in your business, they were born from basically the things you care, you admire, like climate change, social justice, etc., etc.
Yeah.
And this is somehow influenced the culture of the company, right? If I understood correctly.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so do you try to somehow build these values in the companies you build? Like here, for example, in Minsk, do you try to make
a good question.
Corporate culture the same in different places?
The answer to that is no, but kind of, because there's different realities in cultures. It's not possible to potentially, for lots of reasons, to do the same kinds of activities that you might in the U.S. over here. But I will say, and also, in our organization, there's a little bit of a balance problem. Like usually in remote teams, the teams who are in the onshore, if you will, country are much smaller. So you end up having many employees, here, and not very many over there. And so the approach that I've taken to that is to let the people here completely determine the culture. They know best, I don't. So I don't even try to, come in and say, you should have this value, you shouldn't have this value. The way that represents itself in the organization is through the project. And by bringing people in who care about the same things I do to, the engineers and so forth, That's my influence. How that plays out on a day-to-day basis, and what they do in the office itself is not up to me.
Thanks. And the second one, more practical. You told, okay, we are trying to be transparent with our customers about the challenges we have while working with remote teams. Yeah, where is the moment of time and tooling? Probably you use constructions. Yes, we have challenges, but...
You mean how do I communicate it?
And when? The moment of time. I mean, or it's by default, okay, we are remote and these are the challenges, so live with it.
Yeah, I mean, I talk about it if they bring it up in the sales cycle. So if, because now it's really changed, honestly, I think. If I have a customer that says, well, we're not sure we're ready for offshore, I'm like, let me know when you are, and then I go. Because, it's not my job to convince that person that, this whole shift in global understanding of how people work, he'll catch up, okay? It's just not going to be me that does that, because I don't like to waste my time. But if they bring it up, and it's, what about communication, what about this, I just say, this is what we do, this is what we've learned. We'll learn more with you, so.
Thanks.
Yeah.
What about, so you just touched on disqualifying customers yourself.
Yeah.
How, I have the experience that potential clients hate being told that they're not a good fit for me, right?
Yeah, nobody likes that, yeah.
But can you talk about, when are the appropriate moments? What are the warning signs? When should we're all hungry to make payroll and make sure we take care of our people and all of that, but, what about that being careful not to say yes to everything factor?
Yeah. I think if payroll's on the line, you say yes. Sometimes that's pretty easy, but, a couple of warning signs for us is if we're not dealing with a technical founder. Our team is a very technical engineering firm. We don't do, design. We don't do, kind of strategic consulting. I do occasionally, but, not generally speaking. So if we don't have somebody who understands how to write a requirement on the customer side and at all, that's going to run into problems for sure. We don't do fixed bids, anymore. If we have, if someone really is trying to shove more functionality at the sales stage, it's the same answer that I give for offshore, which is we're probably not the right fit for you. Here's somebody who enjoys, falling on a sword. I don't say that, but it's kind of like that. And also, I have to say that depends on how technical and how well they've scoped it out. If it looks pretty tight, then we probably go for it.
Chris, thanks for your presentation. And I have a question. What do you like and what you don't like working with Belarusian developers?
Well, I don't like, there's nothing I really don't like. I feel like, but there's a lot I like. I don't like the distance, coming here for 15 years, or actually now it's 19 years. I've worked in Belarus. And it's gotten a lot easier to get here, but it's still a long way. I think, I found the Belarusian community, first of all, to be very honest, very hardworking. Technically, I'm not a technical person, so this is very helpful to me. I'm a business person. Is that they're excellent and clear. I would say that they're, I wouldn't call it like an obvious negative or something like that, but a difference maybe is, over here, it's kind of process first. And it's, I think it relates to the training, to the culture, to, there's a lot of history of bureaucracy here. And, in the States and I think a lot of Western cultures, it's like, what process? It's kind of like, we're going to start, it's sort of a fire, ready, aim, kind of thing. And after a while, we get, we approach it from a chaos reduction strategy, and you guys kind of approach it from management of chaos from the very beginning. Something that's funny, just an anecdote. I have teams that go regularly over to the U.S. to visit clients, and we've had on occasion been walking around a city here or there late at night, after a pub, a few beers, and something I noticed is that over here at 3 a.m., if there's a red light on, nobody crosses the street. Over in the U.S., they just go. It doesn't matter, daytime, nighttime, whatever, they're going to go. They'll be dodging traffic, and and I think that's kind of a little bit of the difference there.
So we have no time. Thank you, Chris.
Oh, you're welcome. That's it? Boy, that was short. Thank you so much.